Hello, I'm Lord Beezer, and today I'm delighted to share with you my life in show business.
If only it was so simple.
I was born on the day World War II ended, which some would say is auspicious and others might say suspicious. In the gay spirit of the times, my parents christened me Lord. That's correct. It's not a title. It's my first name. And that has caused some confusement and some amusement in my life. My earliest memory is of my mother singing lullabies to me. She would come in the room and sing this song I'm going to play for you now in a cracked, off-key voice. Then she would quietly shut the door and leave me alone in the dark with a ghastly expression on my face.
The owl and the pussycat went to sea in a beautiful pea-green boat. They took some honey and plenty of money wrapped up in a 5-pound note. The owl looked up to the stars above and sang to a small guitar. Oh, lovely pussy, oh pussy, my love, what a beautiful pussy you are. You are, you are. What a beautiful pussy you are. Pussy said to the owl, you elegant fowl, how charmingly sweet you sing.
Well, there we are. Happy days receded into the distance, thankfully. Then there was Father. Well, Father was something of a rum cove and had served in the Merchant Navy during the war. And he once told me that he'd killed 16 men with his bare hands. Unfortunately, most of them were his shipmates. That's the kind of fellow he was. Sometime in the late 40s, he decamped to America. Through the merchant navy, he got to New Orleans and just jumped ship and was there for some while, but he developed a kidney infection, which nearly caused his death. His life was saved by a most unusual medical practitioner, a man he said was the only sawbones I ever met who knew what the hell he was doing.
They call me Dr. Jones, known as the Night Tripper. Got my satchel of grease in my hand. They were tripping up and back down the bayou. I'm the last of the best, they call me the Greasy Man. Got many clients, come from miles around, running down my prescription. I got medicine to cure all y'all's ills. I got remedies of every description. I got it now. Here now. If you got love trouble, you got a bad woman you can't control, I got just the thing for you. Something called controlling hearts and get-together drops. If you work too hard and you need a little rest, try my Easy Life Rub or put some of my Boss Fix jam in your breakfast. Try a little bit of here now.
Well, obviously, when Father came back, he was a changed man. He took to spending most of his time in the shed. He had a small box which he called his hoodoo friends, and in that box was several most odd pieces of literature, some ambergris, some certain stones, and there was incense. He would spend many, many hours down in that shed with the flashing lights and the odours. The neighbours complained, and eventually it was too much for Mother. She said she was off to stay with her sister in Dorset. Well, she never came back. I was 11 years old, and Father looked at me and he handed me a feather duster and a carton of Persil washing crystals and a French cookery book. And he said, "Look after the house, son." Well, I did. In those days, we just got on with things, and I learned how to make a chicken vol au vent, and I can still make a terrific lamb croisette. Really. And these are skills that, as you find out as the story unfolds, that these skills have served me very well. Now, I did ask Father, I said, what is it? What is it that you're waiting for? Why are you spending so much time in the shed? Why are you not going to work? He said, I'm waiting for something to happen. And one day, he came in and turned on the radio and said, "It's happening."
Well, I heard the news. That's good to rockin' tonight. Well, I heard the news. That's good to rockin' tonight. I'm gonna hold my baby as tight as I can. Tonight she'll know I'm a mighty, mighty man. I heard the news. There's good to rockin' tonight. I say, oh, meet me in a hurry behind the barn. Don't you be be afraid that I'll do you no harm. I want you to bring along my rocking shoes, 'cause tonight I'm going to rock away all the blues. I heard the news, there's good rocking tonight. Baby, as tight as I can. Well, tonight she'll know, Marty, Marty, man, I heard the news. There's good rockin' tonight.
Yes, rock and roll had arrived on British shores. It's still playing on, I say. Anyway, rock and roll had its own British star, and that star was Tommy Steele. Now, my father had known Tommy Steele when he was Thomas Hicks in the Merchant Navy. They had bunked together, and he said to me, "We're off to see him. He's playing in Croydon, and we'll go backstage, and he'll treat me like an old friend," which is exactly what Tommy did. And the next thing I know, my father's wangled himself a job as Tommy's personal assistant. So there they are, off on tour, promoting this, promoting Rock Around the Caveman. I'm at home, doing the school diligently, and keeping the house pretty damn clean. Anyway, while they're out having fun, Tommy, and let me tell you, Tommy Steele was not the most talented person in the world. But he did have confidence, and in those days, confidence was everything. He had a charming boyish smile and a can-do attitude. He could sing, he could dance, not that well. But anyway, mysteriously, he became a British film star. They signed him up to Tommy the Toreador, and they had a huge hit with Little White Bull.
Once upon a time there was a little white bull, very sad because he was a little white bull.
Little white bull.
All the black bulls called him a coward just 'cause he was white. Only black bulls go to the bull ring, only black bulls fight. When he asked his mama if a little white bull,
Little white bull.
Well, that's quite enough of that. Thank you very much, Tommy. I'm sorry, but a little of Mr. Steele goes a long way. Although he was always charming to me. And by the time I was 16, they invited me to actually drive for them. And so I left school at 16 and went on the road. A life of excitement, you might think. Well, not particularly. When the Beatles came, Tommy Steele wasn't best pleased. They sort of took his place, and people like him weren't popular anymore. Except a miracle happened, and Walt Disney, from Hollywood, decided to sign this British performer to a massive contract, and off we went to Los Angeles to make half a sixpence.
lined up in a wedding group. Here we are for a photograph. We're all dressed up in a morning suit, all trying not to laugh. Since the early caveman in his fur took a trip to Gretna Green, there's always been a photographer to recall the happy scene. Oh, flashbang, what a picture, what a photograph. Poor old bloke, blimey, what a joke. And blown off in a cloud of smoke, clap hands, stamp your feet.
Yes, well, that's the sort of thing that Tommy specialised in. As I say, he loathed the Beatles, so I deliberately fashioned my hair into a Beatles hairstyle and would often play these songs on the car radio.
Asked a girl what she wanted to be. She said, baby, can't you see? I want to be famous, a star of the screen. But you can do something in between. Baby, you can drive my car. Yes, I'm gonna be a star. Baby, you can drive my car. And maybe I love you. Beep, 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 yeah. What you doing? I'm feeling blue and lonely. Would it be too much to ask of you? What you doing to me? You got me running, and there's no fun in it. Why should it be so much to ask of you? What you doing to me? It's so fine, it's sunshine, it's the world.
Of course, Hollywood in those days was still full of marvellous types of people. Victor Mature, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Peter Cushing. And people who sang backwards. What a marvellous time that was. And there was only one more big film for Tommy in Hollywood, and that was Finian's Rainbow, in which he played a troglodyte or an elf or... No, I'm so sorry. He played a leprechaun in Finian's Rainbow, along with the wonderful Fred Astaire. And I think that film was directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Anyway, that was it really for Tommy. And he and father decided to come back to England and work in theatrical musical versions of Hollywood films, such as Singing in the Rain, which I believe he did successfully for many years. But I stayed on. I was having too good a time in Hollywood to move. And I had got a job by that point driving a most attractive woman, Ava Gardner, who was in her early 50s then and had been a really pin-up film star back in the 50s and the 40s. And I can tell you, she was very wealthy and she had a lot of money. She was still very attractive. Did I mention she had a lot of money? And she had been married to Frank Sinatra, and she was also quite well off. So we married. It was scandalous. I was 26. She was 52. I had to pretend to be the driver, but I got on with it, and she was a wonderful woman, tempestuous, of course. I could tell you stories, and I won't. She was still friendly with Frank Sinatra, who often dedicated songs to her on stage, such as Lover.
Lover, when I'm near you and I hear you speak my name softly in my ear. You breathe a flame. Lover, it's immoral, but why quarrel with our bliss when two lips of coral want a kiss? I say the devil is in you, and to resist you I try. But if you didn't continue, I would die. Lover, please be tender when your tender fears depart. Lover, I surrender to my heart.
Well, there you are, Frank Sinatra, a singer I've always admired, but I must say in person the man was a total bore. He came round one evening to Lana's place in the Hollywood Hills, and well, even before he arrived, cans of film arrived from MGM, brought up in a large truck and delivered. Lana had a private screening room, of course. Everyone did in those days. And Frank made us sit through, first of all, the cut of a movie which he had made, which was just about to be released. I think it was called From Here to Eternity. And all the way through, he was telling us how awful the cut was and how the director had got everything wrong and that there had been a much better cut with a lot more of him in it. He then forced us to watch the longer cut of From Here to Eternity with more of him in it. And I must say, I nodded off. And apparently he was quite upset about it. And I've always felt some things are just better to sleep through.
There is
Well, disco music had certainly forced its way into Hollywood. When I was there in the mid-70s, it was the huge trend, and that was the Bee Gees, of course, but you knew that. You knew that was the Bee Gees. Everybody knows. Wonderful film, wonderful people, Bee Gees, absolutely marvellous. Unfortunately, it had something of a bad effect on Ava. She'd had a couple of knockbacks. She was hoping to get the mother part in The Exorcist. Didn't happen. Couple of other major films that she could have done as a matriarch, and she was still, a decent actress. But the parts were eluding her. She blamed everyone. She blamed her agent. She blamed me. It wasn't my fault. I just drove the car and had a good time. And she started going to the discotheques, and I accompanied her. But the house became filled with strange men, and things went on. Then there was the plant pot incident. Well, it was all covered up. In those days, you could pay off the police for a few $1,000s. It never made the papers, but it was enough for me. I said, Lord, it's time to go. You can handle a Daimler. You can't handle this woman. Some things you just have to admit. So I decamped back to England. And it was the 80s.
Such a wonder.
Yes, through my connections, I got a job driving for the film producer David Putnam. And at that time, he was making a film called Chariots of Fire. And I must tell you, they were struggling. It was a biopic, or biopic, as people say nowadays. Biopic. People say things any old way they want now. Anyway, the film was struggling. Frankly, it was dull. I saw some of the rough cuts at Shepperton, and it was just really, the film did not lift off the ground. And on the way back from one of the screenings, the very depressed David Putnam, I said to him, Vangelis. He said, what? I said, Vangelis. He's a marvellous synthesizer player from Greece. He's making some wonderful soundtrack albums for television shows. Hasn't done a feature film yet, but he's ready for it. I said, if you take a few of those shots of those old buggers running along, you slow them down, and you put a bit of Vangelis music to it, mark my words, David, you'll have a hit. And that was it. The film was a huge hit and swept the board at the Oscars. And I must say, David was very nice about it. He slipped me a few fivers. He knew He knew who'd said what and when, and was grateful for it. Anyway, he was off to Hollywood like a shot, and I don't blame him, because a lot of money for him at that time over in Hollywood, and British people. I think he took over Columbia Pictures and made a terrible mess of it, but I'm sure he did very well. He introduced me to a young man he said to me, this fellow's coming along. He's going to be something. And at that time, he'd just taken over the Labour Party, which at that point was unelectable. And that young man was called Tony Blair. As I say, Tony Blair was a worried man. How to tame the Labour Party, how to bring it under heel, how to make it politically successful. I saw him struggle. Le Val d'Isère, Desjardins, I saw him struggle in several expensive restaurants. He was worried, and I could see it. And I said to Tony, "You know you're taking this too seriously. if you really want to get elected, all you've got to do is promise the people everything they want. So he did market research, and the market research said, well, people want more money for hospitals. People want more money for the police. They want more money for just everything. And I said to him, he said, well, how can we pay the bill? I said, well, that's Gordon Brown's problem, isn't it? And anyway, by the time the actual bill comes round, you'll be long gone. Of course, Tony took my advice and did very well. Sorry. Sorry, I've got a very bad cough. And also, this leads us into rather a downbeat part of the story, and I won't dwell on it, but around that time I developed a drink problem. I missed Ava Gardner, even though she had been a very lively person in my life, and I didn't find anyone to replace her, so drink took her place. And I fell into a sort of drink stupor for many years. When I woke up, it was in a different century, and I was living in Berlin.
The 21st century.
Das 21. Jahrhundert.
Nature, Technology.
Mensch, Natur, Technik.
Man, Nature, Technology.
Mensch, Natur, Technik.
Planet of visions.
Planet of visions.
Planet der Visionen.
was while I was living in Kreuzberg that I discovered the King Mob Beat Group. They were playing at the Gargoyle Club. It's actually called something else, but we always called it the Gargoyle because it had a gargoyle outside. And I went there one night and I saw the King Mob Beat Group and I thought, well, they're bloody good. Although I don't like the look of that singer fellow. Ginger hair man. I didn't care for him. But I did strike up a friendship with the band's bass player, Mr. Tosh Ogawa, a wonderful person, and we had a tremendous night on the town after the show, and I ended up at his hotel, and we passed out, and I passed out on the floor, and I had a cigarette, and the cigarette caught fire on the carpet, and then the sprinkler system came on, and it was really quite memorable, and a wonderful bonding experience between two men, soaking wet with a sort of damp, burnt smell in a hotel room, and an angry manager. And Tosh and I have been friends ever since.
Shiva-va-voom, 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 shiva-va-voom. Hotter than a microwave, cooler than the break of day. Well, she gone. It's all that I know, babe, she's gone. It's just a matter of fact. I'm sick and tired of hearing it. I'm sick and tired of saying she's gone. Yeah, yeah. Like a big black Cadillac with diamonds running down her back. Shiva-va-voom. 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 Yeah, I know, and I freely admit I'm so wrong. I just can't kick it. I'm packing on my bags again, heading for the stars to get gone. Yeah, yeah, with the bad girl candy music running through my head and I'm gone. Shiva-va-voom, shiva-va-voom, shiva-va-voom. Shiva-va-voom. Moving real slow, but the whole world knows Shiva-va-voom. Well, she calls to the cripple, she calls to the lame. She knows about the wild and the secret of the flame. She takes a beat to the limit, she travels on the wire. She's a room full of honey and the poison of a life. Shiva-va-voom. Va-va-voom. Shiva-va-voom. Well, sweet death, come and claim me. Hot sex just serve to inflame me. Crawling up the walls and shouting out her name in my sleep. Yeah, the pink and black Cadillac, diamonds running down her back. Shiva-va-voom, 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 shiva-va-voom.
So when I moved to Lewes a few years ago, I saw that same red-headed man, that singer, that King Mob. Eventually I spoke to him and got invited to do these fill-ins on his radio show, which I'm very happy to do because I'm It's a pleasure to share myself with you. I don't know you, I can't see you, but I know you're out there, and I'm very happy about that. It's a wonderful experience to play music for you. And, well, people ask me, Lord, they say, what do you think of modern life? And I say, well, only yesterday I was sitting in the Trading Post, having breakfast, and there was a family of 5 on the next table, mum and dad, 3 children. They stared at their little screens throughout the entire experience. Does it make them happy? I don't know. Today, I bought a packet of my usual cigarettes, and it contains a photoshopped image of a naked man whose genitals have been removed and a white light is coming through them. What does that mean, I ask myself? Well, we all need a guide in troubled times. And my guide is a red-headed singer, and he's called King Cruel.
Well, same old Bobby, same old Pete. Well, yeah, they got nothing on me. The same old cars, same old streets. But yeah, they got nothing on me. Yeah. And easy come and easy go. Yeah, I'm sure I told you so. They just waiting for your door. Man, I'm sure I told you so. Well, your dead job has been eating away your life. You feel a little inside, but trouble and strife. And now you spend your evening searching for another life. And yeah, I think, mate, I think you got in your sights. Well, easy, easy. There's no need to take that toll. I'm on the telephone, man, just leave us alone. Oh no, I should've kept my receipt, 'cause the sandwich I bought, yeah, it's been off for a week. And now Tesco stealing my money. When positivity seems hard to reach, I keep my head down and my mouth shut. 'Cause if you're going through hell, we just keep going. You're easy, so easy. You're easy. Man, just leave us alone. I'll be 1 minute on the phone.
So there you are. Hope for the future in young Archie. And I'm about to say farewell. It's just flown by. I hope you've enjoyed my music selection and my fragments from my life, which has been, frankly, bizarre, but I'm used to it. And in some ways, as for all of us, it's a wonderful life.
Well, when you're drunk and your money's spent,
I'll drive you home and I'll pay your rent. Say you're beautiful when you're not beautiful. And when you're sick, you know I'll change your sheets. I'll bring you drugs, sing you to sleep. Pray for miracles. You don't believe in miracles. And all we ever need to do is to see the world the way dreamers do. And I'd say never say die, and you'd say it's a wonderful life. When you grow up, I hope you find your way, 'cause everyone seems lost these days. I'll try to help, though I'm adrift myself. But if I can't save you when the darkness comes, or prove love greater than the bomb, I'll try to pretend right up to the end that all we ever need to do is to see the world the way dreamers do. And I'd say never say die, and you'd say it's a wonderful life. But you know that's a wonderful life. I wrote this song long before the war, with no idea who it was for, but now it's done. I'm sure there's someone it was meant for.